All right, welcome back into the Yappin' Football Podcast. Mehl, joined by my guy Javon from Stats Over Feelings. As always, as we head into Week 6, we are giving you guys the 6 most must-watch games for this weekend. We're going to talk about them, preview them, give you guys our picks. Pretty straightforward. Let's hop right into it. Cardinals versus Packers. This is one that I think people might be sleeping on. But Kyler Murray versus Jordan Love, one of the better quarterback matchups of the weekend. And because San Francisco beat Seattle last night, and both of those teams are 3-3, Arizona, if they win this game, is in first in the NFC West because they're 2-0 in division play, beating both the Niners and the Rams already this year. Whereas for the Packers, they're trying to keep pace with the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings and the 3-1 Detroit Lions in that NFC North. And oh yeah, don't forget the 3-2 Chicago Bears. The Packers lose this game, they could be in last place through 6 weeks in the NFC North. This is a crazy game.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, so I'm assuming that you think this game is bigger for the Packers as opposed to the Cardinals because of the expectations, how tight of a race it is.
Well, expectations-wise, for sure. But, I mean, talk about an opportunity if you're the Cardinals.
Yeah, and it's not like they're going up against the best team either, the best team in the NFL right now.
The 49ers have started off slow, and they have a pretty bad red zone offense right now without Christian McCaffrey. The Rams are 1-4 and have injuries to Kupp and Nakua. We'll see when those guys get back out there, but already a tall task for them to climb up. Plus, they already beat the Rams once in a head-to-head. And Seattle's lost 3 in a row, including a loss to the Giants in that mix, and they clearly have the worst quarterback in their division. This is a prime spot for Arizona to make a move, and if they could win a couple games here, they could get into the playoffs.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've heard you say this before, like the talent gap between NFL teams is not as big as everybody makes it out to be. And honestly, this year, I think there hasn't been a better example than this year, man. So many teams don't have the personnel, don't have the all-pro players on their roster like the Minnesota Vikings or even the Cardinals, who are really competing in games and upsetting a lot of teams that we wouldn't expect. And honestly, it just goes to coaching, scheming, and maybe the talent isn't as big as everyone thinks it is, man. That's all it boils down to, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how Kyler Murray in the Cardinals offense fares against the Packers defense. The Packers defense has been stingy taking the ball away. Xavier McKinney, 5 games, 5 interceptions. Right now, I don't know how he's not the defensive player of the year. I mean, at this pace, he's going to finish, close to the interception record.
Stop throwing the ball over there.
But for the Cardinals, their offense, good rush offense attack with Kyler and James Conner. Trey McBride will be, out there this week. You have Marv, you have Dortch, you have Michael Wilson. I'm interested to see if Kyler can make just enough plays for the Cardinals to win this game. Because if so, they're not only in first in the NFC West, but they have to start being a team that you could believe in. They beat San Francisco, and then the week after, go to Green Bay and beat Jordan Love and the Packers in his house. It's like, hold on, are we ahead of schedule here? I do worry that their defense is just such a liability, but can Kyler, if Kyler were to lead this Cardinals team to the playoffs this year, he has to be talked about as a top 10 guy.
That was going to be my next point, man. He might, if he wins this week, I think he's already one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. You outplayed Jordan Love and Brock Purdy already, and we're only in like week 6 or going into week 6. Like, I think that's pretty impressive in itself.
Yeah, and for the Packers, listen, the plan here has got to be Josh Jacobs, and then Jordan Love, make plays when we need. Romeo Doubs is expected to play this week. Really weird situation last week that happened post us recording. He was suspended and essentially benched for the game because he didn't go to practice or got there late because he wasn't happy that he wasn't getting the ball enough in game, which is just so odd for me because, one, if you weren't happy that you weren't getting the ball, wouldn't you go to practice to try and get a better connection with your quarterback so you could get the ball?
Hey,
but two, I don't mean to be this guy. Who does Romeo Doubs think he is walking in there saying, I need the ball more? He's in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. He's good. But there is about 50 plus Romeo Dobbs in the NFL right now.
Hey man, I'm dealing with the same thing with George Pickens, man. He's just acting the fool right now. But that's another
Yeah.
story for another time. But yeah, Jaden Reed has been big time for the Packers, man. He made a
That's
crazy
what I mean,
catch.
though. If
Like,
Jaden Reed's like, I'm
yeah,
not getting the ball enough, I'd be like, all right. I mean, every time you get the ball, it's a 20-yard play. I hear you.
yeah, like, exactly, man. Jaden Reed has been balling. I think he made like a crazy catch in like damn near triple coverage last week. And he's not the biggest guy. Romeo Dobbs is pretty big.
Yeah.
He's like basically the prototypical outside receiver, man. And he can't get the ball because he can't get open. That's not Jordan Love's fault. That's not no one else's fault but his.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not, firing off the panic alarms in terms of the chemistry there. And, this is some big issue that's going to be a problem. But I did see a video that also came out from this week's practice where Matt LaFleur like went up to Romeo Dobbs and Dobbs like seemingly wanted nothing to do with him. I just kind of wonder if
Dramatic.
all the talk on this offseason about the Packers have 4 wide receiver ones. And every time I heard that, I was like, that probably means that they have no wide receiver ones. I wonder if they got 4 wide receiver one egos in that building, though,
Yeah.
because that could be a problem. We'll see what happens. Maybe Dobbs is a potential trade candidate. I mean, he's cheap, a team that could need a weapon, maybe Kansas City. I don't know. But let's get to the nitty gritty here. Who you got winning this game? The Packers are favored by 5 at home against Arizona. Do you believe in Kyler Murray?
I'm gonna take the Packers at home, man. If the Packers can stick to the game plan and give my guy Josh Jacobs at least 18 to 22 carries, I think they can win this game pretty soundly. But my guess is haven't been as accurate as of late, anyways. Like there's been a lot of upsets the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, so upsets have been coming aplenty. Here's what
Yeah.
I'll say. The Cardinals are coming off of potentially their biggest win of the season. And usually there is a little bit of a momentum fall off. I'm going to go with the Packers here because I think they can control the ball against the Arizona defense. I think that they are more likely to sustain drives, have the ball longer. Josh Jacobs is back there for them. I expect him to get over 20 touches in this game. I think Jordan Love can spread the wealth around. I don't think this secondary is by any means too scary. You could get a big play out of a Dontavian Wicks or Jaden Reed in this matchup. And I think the Packers defense makes enough plays with the pass rush that they have. They can make Kyler Murray uncomfortable. Xavier McKinney is going to be lurking out there. I'm going with Green Bay as well, but a little part
It makes sense.
of me wants to see Kyler pull it off. I'm not going to lie. Part of me wants to see him pull it off.
It makes sense, bro. But like at the same time, we just saw this team beat the 49ers last week.
I was going to say, this is the exact same argument that I had for why the 49ers were going to win. And to be fair, if the 49ers don't lose their kicker in that game, I do think they hold on to it and and we're having a different story. But we move forward. The Cleveland Browns take on my Philadelphia Eagles. And you might be saying, what is this doing on here? This is a 1-4 team versus a 2-2 team. What are we talking about? I think we all know the expectations and the talent that the Philadelphia Eagles roster has. They're coming off of a bye week now, and they're healthy. There's no more excuses. I am willing to give them grace for the Tampa Bay loss. 108 degrees out. Goddard, Jurgens, Reed Blankenship all leave the game due to cramping and illness. You didn't have A.J. Smith or Lane Johnson. It was a disaster game. But again, it's one loss. If you don't come out at home off of a bye week against Deshaun Watson, who has been arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL, who still has his job, and a 1-4 Browns team who have just been dominated and kicked around this season, I don't know. I if they don't dominate, I don't think they're legit Super Bowl contenders. And if they don't win, the season's cooked. And it's not to say that it's cooked that they'll miss the playoffs. They might make the playoffs, but it's not a winning team.
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to feel about Sirianni if they lose this game? Like,
I think that seat is gonna warm up a lot.
yeah, I mean, 100%. You can't lose this game if you're the Eagles, man. I mean, this offense alone damn near makes the Browns one of the worst teams in football. I might even pick the Panthers over the Browns at this point just because of how bad Deshaun Watson is. In the last couple of weeks, the Panthers have proven that they can run the ball now with Chuba Hubbard, and
Yep.
and Andy Dalton isn't as ass as we all thought. But the Eagles, you got to win this game. I don't think they have to dominate because the Browns defense are still talent on that side of the ball. So I'm going to give them credit for that. But they're going to have more than enough opportunities on offense to score because of the Browns offense being so bad. So I definitely think that they should win this game.
I mean, the Browns' only win this year is over the Jaguars. They lost 33-17 to Dallas, 21-15 to the Giants, 20-16 to the Raiders, and 34-13 to the Commanders. So you could see, like, the better teams, Dallas and Washington, are winning by 2 scores.
Yeah.
And those are teams in Philly's division. Philly has to keep pace with those guys, and they have to win by 2 scores in this game, I feel. Obviously, we'll see what happens, flow of the game. If the Browns get like a kick return touchdown and it ends up being like a 1-score game, if something wonky happens, obviously, the win is the more important aspect here. But the Eagles should be able to control the clock. They should be able to run the ball with Saquon Barkley, and they should be able to get plays when they need them out of A.J. Brown, out of Devonta Smith, out of Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts needs to cut down on the turnovers. The red zone interceptions are absolute killers. He can't keep having them. And this is the get right game for Philly. This is really the get right month for the Eagles, if we're being completely honest here. And you know, they're 2-2. We've been talking about Sirianni. Is he going to be fired? Is Jalen Hurts overrated to open up the season? Over this next month versus Cleveland, at the Giants, at Cincinnati versus the Jaguars. If you go 4-0 in that stretch, which you are more than capable of doing, now you're 6-2, and Sirianni's job will be safe for the year. Jalen Hurts, the conversations, depending on his play, obviously, but probably come back down. And it's like, maybe it was just beginning of year sloppy because there's 2 new coordinators. It's just with what we saw with this team to end last season, it looks a lot of like what we're seeing to begin this season. And it's like, is this sloppiness because of, you know, no playing in the preseason, sloppiness because of new coordinators, or is this team just sloppy?
I mean, Jalen Hurts has had a lot of turnovers, man, and that's to say the least. But I mean, I try to give the Eagles a little bit of slack. What, AJ Brown's only played like what, 1 game this year?
He only played versus the Packers.
Yeah,
and the offense put up 31 points.
Yeah, so that's a top 5, top 7 receiver right there. And he's barely been out there. Devonta Smith, did he play your last game? I don't think so. Now both of the receivers are healthy now. You got Saquon. He's going to do what he does. All you have to do is make sure he gets the ball. I mean, this offense, it should pick up the pace, man.
The thing is, with this offense and with Jalen Hurts just needs to be a game manager with all the talent that's out there. And in the big games, that's when we need the play. But so far, it's been pulling teeth with this offense.
It seems like in big games, you just have to not turn the ball over because Saquon, no matter how you guys feel about the offensive line, he's getting yards. Yeah. He's playing amazing. I mean, AJ Brown, just throw the ball in his vicinity. Like,
just don't turn the ball over. Is the Eagles' defense doesn't force turnovers. The pass rush isn't there, and their defensive backs are good, but they don't take the ball away. Gardner Johnson and Reed Blankenship, he's got 2 picks this year because the ball was just thrown right at him. But Darius Slay, not the guy he once was. Quinyon Mitchell, a rookie, good corner, but he's missed a couple should-be pick 6s this year, and that's to be expected with a rookie. But when the guys behind him also can't take the ball away, it's like Philly's offense really needs to get points out of possessions and can't lose the ball because the defense can't get it back for you. For Cleveland, if they lose this game and get dominated again, do we start having Jameis Winston conversations? Kevin Stefanski basically shut the door on them going into this week. But if Watson's turning the ball over to this defense, I'd want to have a conversation if I was a Browns fan.
Dude, there's been Jameis Winston conversation since like week 2. Like probably since week 0. This is before the season started. I don't think nobody wanted this man starting. It's incredible how he's still playing. Like it has to be ownership at this point, saying like we're paying this dude too much money. He's gonna play. That's all it can be, man. He's like, there's Browns fans saying play DTR, play anybody over this guy. And for
anybody but Deshaun.
Exactly, man. And for the Eagles, I mean, shit, just a couple of years ago, you guys had what, the most sacks in a season in NFL history, and now we can't get to the quarterback. So that's crazy.
The transition from Hassan Reddick to Bryce Huff has been a disaster.
He's not doing anything out there.
He has been non-existent, and Fangio gets a lot of shit, and I think some of it rightfully so, because a lot of his secondary coverage is play back, let's not get beat over the top, but they're just constantly giving up underneath stuff, and then they don't know how to tackle. But to be fair to him, he has tried throwing out anybody and everybody on that defensive line, and it doesn't look like there's a single guy that can consistently get pressure besides maybe Jalen Carter. But even at that, he's an interior defensive lineman, and you need to be elite of the elite Aaron Donald, Chris Jones to consistently get pressure from the inside. So, a lot of people want to come at Jalen Carter for that, and I think it's a little crazy. But must-win game for the Eagles. Maybe we see Jameis. Game of the week, you called it in our pre-show. Commanders versus Ravens. Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. The 4-1 Commanders take on the 3-2, but the 3-game win streak. Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. The battle for Maryland here, some are referring to it as. Baltimore favored by an entire touchdown. Is this fair? Is this not fair?
Nah, man. Well, you look at the Commanders' defense, and they're pretty bad. But then you look at the Ravens' defense, and they're pretty bad too. So it's like a touchdown is kind of crazy. At that point, they're just predicting Jaden Daniels is just going to put the ball in harm's way, which he hasn't been doing. So that seems what the prediction is going to be. The Ravens still have the talent over there, but I mean, a touchdown, the way Jaden Daniels has been an MVP caliber player for this entire season, I think that's kind of disrespectful. I mean, Lamar has been too, but apparently they're just taking Lamar over Jaden. It's a quarterback matchup at that point.
I think Lamar has played some of his best football to date this year. I think the second year in this Monken offense, honestly, as a passer, he looks better than he did last year when he won the MVP award. And, to give Lamar some flowers, his only weapon is Zay. Mark Andrews has been non-existent. Isaiah Likely had 2 touchdowns last week, but he also had 13 yards. So, it's only in the red zone that he was getting the ball. Nelson Aguilar and Rashad Bateman, Lamar is doing it with a pretty subpar receiving core. And he's leading the best offense in the NFL from a yards per game standpoint. Obviously, Derrick Henry has been huge. The guy is on pace for 20 touchdowns this season. He has been everything as advertised, everything we thought he would be when the Ravens brought him in. But this offense runs through Lamar Jackson, and it's not like the NBA where you can't give a guy 3 MVPs if he doesn't win. I'm not opposed. I mean, if they win this game, does Lamar become the MVP favorite?
I don't know, man, because they're just going to point to Derrick Henry, That's the thing. Derrick Henry has been insane this year, dude. Best running back. I don't know where it comes. Nick Chubb hasn't played this year or whatever, but
neither man, McCaffrey.
Yeah, so it's damn, bro. At this point,
even if they love to Saquon up there,
Saquon's been great, but Derrick Henry, man, I just feel like he's been on another level, bro. It seemed like the whole game last week he was just playing atrocious, and then he just breaks off a run in overtime to sit a game. The Bengals, there he is.
Well, so last week the Bengals showed you, hey, we're gonna stack the box and make Lamar beat us as a passer, and Lamar showed you,
that's what it's gonna come down. That's what it's gonna have to come down to, especially in the playoffs. But if I'm the Ravens, I just think it's time that you start Isaiah Likely, man. What are you waiting for?
That the Ravens are the betting odds favorite for DraftKings to land Devontae Adams too.
What? No, that's crazy.
And
Dude,
listen,
imagine.
so the thing was, I was like, I'm not going to put a lot of stake in that. But then I was like, I mean, DraftKings isn't in the business of losing money. Like, they got to know something to have the odds that low. I don't know if they get him. I think a sneaky name to watch to Baltimore is Tyler Lockett. 3-game losing streak now for Seattle. If the wheels start to come off, maybe you could get some
Yeah.
value for him, and that'd be a nice piece for them to have out there in Baltimore. But let's talk about the Commanders here. I do my weekly tier list on my channel, and I have not moved them into the Super Bowl contender tier yet, despite them being 4-1, and despite them, in my opinion, having a top 3 offense in the NFL. Rookie of the year for sure in Jaden Daniels at this point, and even MVP candidate Jaden Daniels. They haven't had that win yet that I was like really impressed with. The Monday night football game versus Cincinnati was a good display for the offense, but Cincinnati's also the same team that's 1-4 and lost a game to the Patriots. How much stake do I put in that win against a team like that? I don't know. If they could go to Baltimore and beat the Ravens, I think we have no choice but to look at Washington and think they could go on a Super Bowl run.
I mean, it's on the board. The defense is just like that's their weak link. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
We'll see what the defense does Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, the Ravens have one of the best offenses in the NFL right now, too. So we're going to see. But when it comes to the Commanders, man, like everybody, when it comes to any team in the NFL, it just seems like we're all judging them based off of what we've seen them do in past years. But I don't think this season is that simple, man. I don't know what pixie dust is in the air, but the Vikings are 5-0. The Commanders are 4-1. Like, who expected any of this shit to be going on? I can only judge a team based off what I've seen them do this season, man. I'm not going to judge them based off of past years. I can only judge them based off of these 5 games.
In the beginning of the season, what kind of odds do you think you could have gotten on Commanders Vikings NFC Championship, huh? I mean, not that like that's set in stone and going to happen, but man, it's what kind of odds do you think you could have given me that I would have been like, yeah, I'll bet you that it's not even on the board after a month. And
we're talking like plus 5K.
It is heavily on the board. Jaden Daniels has been excellent. You know, it's one of those things that hindsight is always 2020. But when we did do our draft shows talking about the draft, we said he was the most NFL ready quarterback in this class. He's coming off winning the Heisman. He played in the SEC. He's played with NFL talent. He's played for a minute. He's 2 years older than CJ Stroud. Like,
that's crazy.
The guy is NFL ready. And we didn't know how much Washington was ready for a good quarterback. You flip over 2/3 of the roster, bring in a whole new coaching staff. Who knows how that's all going to land? And it's not perfect, but they are winning football games, and they're very much so impressing me. Like you said, this is game of the weekend. The Ravens are favored by 7. Who are you taking?
You know what? I'm gonna take the Commanders, man.
I'm gonna outright.
I'm gonna take the Commanders, man, to win this one. I ain't gonna lie. I believe in them.
I'm gonna lean with Baltimore. I think that I think their offensive success is a little bit more repeatable than Washington's.
They damn near got the same play style, bro.
So the difference here is, in Washington's big thing is, let's make it second and short at all costs and only have to drop a couple deep shots when we need to. And they run screens at the highest percent in the NFL. It's not even close. It is ridiculously high, the percent that they run screens at. Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith. Those are the kind of guys that can stop that. The Baltimore defense isn't perfect, but they got some guys on that end.
Marlon Humphrey's still there too. So
Marlon Humphrey, Matabuke, Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton. If I had to bet on one of these defenses to come through, it's the one with those guys on it.
But like it hasn't been. I guess the offense is
I just meant like in this matchup. I don't know if that defense is going to come through in the long term. But in a battle of two great offenses and two defenses that have been bad, give me the one with the star players on the defensive side to figure it out. But we
Makes
will
sense.
see. Uh, America's game of the week for Fox: the Lions versus the Cowboys. The 3-1 Lions travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. If you remember how this game ended last season, it was the really bad. The guy on the Lions didn't tell the ref that he was eligible, but there was like
Oh
a
yeah,
clear attempt for him to tell the ref he was eligible. The 2-point conversion doesn't count. They back up, and instead of taking the point after being backed up, Dan Campbell goes for it again. They don't get it. Dallas wins the game. Really wonky finish. A lot of people thought the ref screwed the Lions in that spot. So a little bit of a revenge game factor here. The Cowboys are coming off of, I would say, an impressive win for them on Sunday night versus Pittsburgh. Dak, for his 50 and 50 up and down as he was that game, led a good game-winning drive at the end there. Again, every week is starting to feel must-win for Dallas. I think Dallas and Philly have that same thing going on because
yeah,
the other one isn't performing well, and Washington's all the way up. And it's like, is there going to be 3 NFC East playoff teams? Probably not, with how good the NFC North is. So
yeah,
one of Dallas, Philly, and Washington is probably going to miss. It's just which one is it going to be? And right now, it's not looking like Washington.
yeah.
So, and Detroit, off of a bye week and off of a really good win over Seattle, they got back to what they were offensively, that they were at the end of last year. And the reason I picked them to go to the Super Bowl this year, because when you establish that run with Montgomery and Gibbs, it just opens things up in that passing game, gives Goff a little bit of breathing room. And with weapons like Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, the offense can really open up the floodgates on teams. And we saw it happen Monday night versus Seattle. Goff was 18 of 18, the most ever completions ever without an incompletion. They put up 40 plus points. They were dominant. They go into the bye. Now they take on Dallas, who I still believe will be without DeMarcus Lawrence and without Micah Parsons. Is
Yeah.
this the makings of a blowout?
Yeah, I don't give the Cowboys a shot, man. Like 2 touchdowns easily. Like I don't give them a shot
The
at all.
last time you said 2 touchdowns easily, the other team won.
That is true, but this is different. This is the Detroit Lions. They have experience and they actually have a real running game, unlike Pittsburgh last year or last week. We saw Najee Harris. I mean, this whole season hasn't been able to run the ball efficiently at all. Our one efficient runner, Cordero Patterson, was out and Jalen Warren was out. So this team has a 2-headed monster in the backfield. There's no way they could go for like a $175 combined rushing, and we all know what Gibbs can do in the passing game as well. So I don't give the Cowboys a shot at all. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Do you think Dallas will be able to move the ball? Because Detroit's defense isn't amazing, but I have a sneaky feeling that Aiden Hutchinson might be in for a big game.
I mean, that is true at the same time, but if Dak's gonna have to throw the ball 50 times, he's gonna make mistakes regardless. And unlike the Steelers did last week, the Lions can make you pay for those mistakes. They can score off those extra opportunities. So even if they are able to move the ball effectively, I mean, he threw a pick in the red zone, had a fumble, or last week. I mean, it was just crazy. So
I hate to be so anticlimactic with this, and I know any Cowboys fans that see this are not going to be happy, but this is just spelling for a Detroit dominant win. Dallas doesn't have a pass rush with Parsons and Lawrence out. How do you stop Jared Goff? A pass rush. Once he gets a pass rush on him, he's kind of folds. He crumbles.
yeah,
They won't have that. He's going to have time. They're in a dome. Dallas's run defense isn't great. Dallas's run offense isn't good, and they can't sustain drives. We even saw it versus Pittsburgh. They would still, I mean, Pittsburgh's a great defense, obviously, but
yeah.
Dallas wasn't exactly moving the ball up and down the field versus anybody this season. It took Baltimore in that defense going up like 30 to finally start letting some stuff up. So I definitely worry if I'm Dallas here. I think this is like you said, a 2-score win for Detroit. I think that they are able to establish the run, pound the rock, play with a lead, and control this entire game from start to
Yeah.
finish. And if I'm a Lions fan, that's my expectation going into this one.
I mean, 100%, man. So we're both on the same type of vibe with this game because
Yeah,
I don't
Detroit
have no
is
faith in
favored
the
by
Cowboys.
3.5 on the road.
Wow, that's it? That's crazy.
That is it. We got an interesting game here. AFC West rivals, Chargers versus Broncos. The Raiders kind of look like they are the bottom dwellers of this division. The Chiefs are obviously at the top, but the team that comes in second, I do believe, could sneak into the playoffs. The 2-2 Chargers coming off of a bye, they needed it. Herbert was banged up, Slater was banged up, Alt was banged up, versus the 3-2 Denver Broncos, who they have been better than expected. Bo Nix, better than expected. Pat Surtain, showing that he is the best corner in
Yeah.
football. I mean, this is similar to Revis Island in his prime. And I know that that is going to be crazy for some people, but it's the truth. The over-under for this game is 36.5. It is going to be low scoring, according to
slugfest.
Vegas. Where do you what do you think about this game? Where do you lean? What do you think about the Broncos and Chargers at this point? Do you think either of them are legit? Both pretenders, contenders? Where are you at?
I mean, I don't think any of them are contenders, but I do think either one of these teams can beat any team on any given week. You know, I mean, it seems like it's like that for damn near any team in the NFL nowadays. But honestly, the Broncos, their pass defense is pretty elite. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, but the Chargers don't really have a crazy number one wide receiver anyway. It's like, who are you shutting off? You know, Quentin Johnston. So it's like, okay,
Quentin Johnson might look like Quentin Johnson from last year, matched up against Pat Surtain all day.
And he's been pretty decent this year, but Justin Herbert has no problem spreading the ball around. And J.K. Dobbins started off the season, the first 2 weeks, pretty electric, but as of late has not been as great as he was the first 2 weeks. So I believe his over-under was like 58 yards. In the first 2 games, he was averaging $130. So this week is going to have to basically boil down to him, man. How effectively can the Chargers run the ball? Because that's how they put points on the board, honestly.
Here's my thing when it comes to this game, and I think this is a major advantage that the Chargers just have in the NFL right now. The way that the Chargers play teams and play games, typically it's lower scoring, it's a slugfest, and it's going to be close. It's very similar to the Pittsburgh Steelers, so I know that you are well aware of the play style. If this game is close in the fourth quarter, you want Justin Herbert or Bo Nix?
I mean, yeah.
But I think that's one of the reasons I'm so high on the Chargers this year. I got asked multiple times on my channel why I have the Chargers as kind of like a lock playoff team. And my thing is they're the Pittsburgh Steelers with a little bit worse defense, but a way better quarterback.
I mean, you can say that, but like I think the question is a little bit more complex than that. It's like, do you take Justin Herbert versus the Broncos defense, or do you take Bo Nix versus the Chargers defense? That's what I think the question kind of should be in this situation.
So are you taking the Broncos to win this game?
Nah.
Okay. So you agree with me. So you're taking Justin Herbert.
I've seen Justin Herbert make some very crazy mistakes in close games also. So, I mean, that's not how I would look at it.
It's not to say that I would take Herbert over Mahomes.
It's
Bo Nix. Listen, and shout out the Broncos. They've played better than I expected them to. But Bo Nix has more interceptions than touchdown passes on the year, where Justin Herbert has a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio on the year.
Yeah.
Like, there is a sizable gap between these two quarterbacks. And I don't think that Denver has the weapons right now to supplement what Bo Nix needs to succeed in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think Bo Nix can succeed in the NFL. I think Bo Nix can succeed on the Broncos under Sean Payton. But you talk about a team that needs to get some weapons for their quarterback, it's Denver. Bo Nix needs weapons to succeed. And right now he's got maybe a guy in Courtland Sutton. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, Bo Nix, he hasn't been atrocious this year, but when you have a team that just knows how to win games, we've seen it all year. That team can be dangerous, man. I mean, I think this game is just going to be a lot closer than people think. I mean, it's not like these are two high-scoring offenses anyway.
No, it'll be close, but I do think these two games that these two play against each other this year could determine which one of them gets into the playoffs and which one misses.
Oh, 100%.
And, it's not to say that one of them's even guaranteed a spot, but when you look around the AFC, are the Jets going to get in? We'll talk about them in just a second, but it could just be one team out the AFC East. The AFC North will probably have two teams, whether it's Cincinnati coming all the way back or Baltimore and Pittsburgh. And the AFC South, it's going to be probably just Houston. Like, there's a lot of room for one of these two teams to get into the playoffs in the AFC. It's pretty top heavy. I don't think that they could go on a run, but you have a good defense. And if you're the Chargers, you have Justin Herbert. Maybe you win 3 games in a row.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of season left too. So
no, for sure. But my point being, there's a lot of season left. But this week 6 matchup might determine which one of you guys gets in. So this is a big game.
Yeah, I mean, this season, like, it just feels like it has a different feeling to it, man. It really does feel like every game matters so much more, especially since all of the top-heavy teams are kind of or some of the top-heavy teams are kind of underperforming a little bit in both conferences. So it feels like every game matters a lot more because in the back of everyone's head is like, okay, when are they going to turn it on?
There's only 5 teams that don't have more than 1 loss. It's Detroit, Kansas City, Minnesota, Houston, and Washington. Those are the only teams that are under 2 losses.
We're only in week 6.
And 2 of those teams, nobody expected to be in that spot. Even their fans that thought that they could be good, I think thought that they'd be like 3-2 at this point. Maybe 4-1 if they were lucky. But I think 3-2 is the thought. Another divisional game, we just kind of talked about it. Bills versus Jets, the Jets saga. We didn't talk about it at all. We'll talk about it here, obviously. Robert Saleh fired on Tuesday morning after the London loss. Aaron Rodgers claims he had nothing to do with it, claims that he didn't know it was coming, but then also claims that the owner of the New York Jets called him the night prior.
Ridiculous, dude.
Here's what I'll say. I don't believe Aaron Rodgers is telling the truth. But if he
flat out said it.
But if he was, he should be pissed. The owner of the team called you the night before he fired your head coach and didn't ask your opinion on it. He should be pissed. And I don't think that there's anything wrong, by the way, with Aaron Rodgers. If Woody Johnson calls Aaron Rodgers and says, hey, how do you feel about me firing Robert Saleh? And Aaron Rodgers says, hey, it doesn't feel like the locker room believes in him. We're 2-3. I wouldn't mind the change. You're good to go. There is nothing wrong with what Aaron Rodgers did if that is the exchange. So I'm not saying I think Aaron Rodgers picked up the phone and said, he wants to take play calling away from my buddy Nat Hackett. Fire him. That's not what I'm accusing him of. But I think he's lying and saying he had nothing to do with it. You make decisions, or at least you're a big part of the Jets' decisions. We know this. That's why Nat Hackett's there. That's why Alan Lazard got $40 million. That's why Randall Cobb had a contract last year. Like, we know that's why the team's probably going to trade for Devontae Adams. Like, we know that you were involved in the decision-making process. And as a multiple-time MVP, a future Hall of Famer, a Super Bowl winning quarterback that's 40 and been in the league forever, you should. But don't lie and be like, I had nothing. I didn't even know it was going to happen. I was blindsided. No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
The Jets are so dysfunctional, dude. I mean, if you're a Jets fan, you're like, what are you doing? Your defense basically shut down the best team in the NFL last week, basically, right? And then you go ahead and fire him. You go ahead and fire your head coach, who's basically the commander of that defense. The problem with the Jets is the offense. I mean, I saw him first a couple of days ago. Aaron Rodgers, since his last MVP, has been identical to Derek Carr, dude. So there lies your problem right there. Your problem isn't the defense. You just got rid of your play caller on defense. You fired the wrong guy. You
Well,
should
he's
have
not even.
fired.
He was. Well, so the thing is, Robert Saleh wasn't even calling the plays on defense. It's this Ulbrich that they
Yeah.
just brought up to be the head coach. Which again, is firing Robert Saleh a bad decision in its in a vacuum? No, it's not. He was 20-36 as the Jets head coach. I think he was given a shit hand because he had Zach Wilson for most of his time, but he's one of those CEO head coaches like Nick Sirianni and like Dan Campbell, where he doesn't call the offense, he doesn't call the defense. That means you need to be a culture guy. That means you need to be a leader of the team. The franchise quarterback that the Jets brought in seemingly doesn't like Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh seemingly doesn't like him. They can claim that their relationship is fine, but let's look at some things. Aaron Rodgers scheduled a trip to Egypt during mandatory practice. Robert Saleh then aired it out on him and said it was unexcused.
Yeah.
Right in front of the media.
Bro, he's the head coach. He can say that, though. That's the thing.
But clearly they don't get along.
I mean, whatever, dude. Like, I'm the coach. You're the quarterback. What are you talking about?
It's fine if you want things to run that way.
Yeah.
But when Aaron Rodgers clearly has more power than you within the organization, it's not going to run that way.
For no reason. He has done nothing to earn all of this power. That's what makes no sense to me. And at the same time,
all of this power, I could agree with. Any power, he should have some say, I feel.
I mean, some say, but you should have the power, and that's what I wanted to get at. Just because he talked to the owner the night before and they didn't bring it up, doesn't mean it never came up. That doesn't mean they never talked about if we lose this week, you need to fire him.
Well, it definitely came up. It definitely came up in that conversation because McAfee asked him, "Oh, like how often do you guys talk?" And he said, sometimes, like not too often." He said he called me after I tore my Achilles. Great, probably should have. And then he said he called me during my rehab and then last Monday. So it's not like he's calling you weekly after the games.
I don't believe that either, though.
But he usually calls you when there's something pressing going on.
Man.
Like maybe firing the head coach. And again, if I were to just believe what Rodgers says at face value, then it's even worse than what I think happened. Because it's even worse for me to believe that your owner called you, was floating the idea in his mind of firing your head coach, and just didn't say anything to you about it, but was on the phone with you, just talking to you about, hey, what do you think about who's going to win the World Series?
Yeah, and we're like discrediting the owner. You're like discrediting the owner at that point because you're making it seem like he just makes these impulsive decisions, like he just hung up and then decided.
Apparently, reports came out that the front office had no idea. Like the GM did not know this was happening. Robert Saleh had no idea this was happening. All the reports on this were crazy. Robert Saleh went to the building, thought that he was going to work as normal. He made the decision to take the play calling away from Nat Hackett. He gets a call from Woody Johnson 5 minutes later to come to his office, gets fired. Security escorts him out. No closing meeting with the team. It was just, I mean,
wow, that's kind of wild.
To be a fly on the wall in the Jets facility that day. All of this to say, this Monday they have one of the most important games of their season as they face Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, where if they win, they're, believe it or not, in first place in the division.
It pisses me off, dude. I'm not gonna lie. It pisses me off, bro. Because I don't know. It's like they don't deserve it, man. They're so dysfunctional. They don't deserve to be first place in anything.
Well, the Bills are favored by 2.5 on the road. James Cook might not play, dealing with a bit of a toe injury.
Yeah.
Khalil Shakur hasn't practiced either. The Bills are going to be down some pieces. The Jets defense is still really good.
Josh Allen,
and when, not that Ulbrich is good, but if the locker room, aside from Rodgers, really didn't believe in Saleh, usually we see a bit of a turnaround with the interim head coach. Yeah. It's like the student's happy when the substitute teacher shows up for a day. You can't always have the interim be the guy forever, but in the quick spurt right after, it's usually fairly successful.
Yeah.
this feels like a spot where the Jets win this freaking game somehow. And Aaron Rodgers has a great game. And everybody's all back in.
I mean, I can't. This is like so much drama going on, but I can't really think of a reason why the Jets would really lose. I mean, what you said they're at home, like they're out two of some of their top offensive players.
They switched their head coach, switched their offensive play caller, and are playing Josh Allen. I mean, if you wanted to say why they would lose.
Yeah, but if
Aaron Rodgers and that offense aren't good.
Yeah, but if your interim head coach can at least maintain solid system, because that was solid system, even though he wasn't calling all the plays, that defense was all him. If he can somewhat just tread water on defense, man, like I think they'll be straight, man. They don't have to score 28 points to beat this team. This could be like a 23-17, a 23-20, like, and you guys would walk out and just be like, okay, we got out of here with a win. Because that's really what you need at this point.
I know I'm crazy. I think the Jets win the game.
And yeah, I do too.
I think we're crazy for thinking that. I think that we are crazy for betting against Josh Allen and Bills and Sean McDermott against this stew of dysfunction.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just feels like we're going to get a great Rodgers game.
No.
One of like 3 that he has left in him.
I'm betting on the Jets defense. I'm not betting on Aaron Rodgers. I'm betting because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball, which means Josh Allen is going to have to throw the ball a lot, but they have one of their top receivers out. It's going to be a Keon Coleman legacy game, or either he's going to get shut down by Sauce Gardner. It's going to be one or the other, man. So I'm going to take my chances on the Jets.
I'm not even a Bills or Jets fan, and that game stresses me out.
No cap, man.
But that's what we got for you guys today. Those are the 6 most must-watch games as we head into week 6 of the NFL season. Be sure to hit the subscribe button on the channel, hit the like button. Hopefully this video found the algorithm. The last couple haven't on the new channel. It's to be expected. But we are establishing a firm ground here of good content on the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch you next time. Peace.